Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it. And this you have the power to revoke at any moment." Let that sink in for a second. What he's saying is, your mind decides the meaning of everything, not the event, not the person, not the chaos outside. You get to decide what story you attach to it. And that right there, that's where your real power begins. Now more than ever, staying calm isn't just helpful. It feels almost rare. Life's loud, fast, constant. And when everything around you is spinning, having emotional control, it's like having an internal anchor while the storm rages on. But here's the good news. You don't have to be born with this ability. The Stoics believed it's something anyone can learn and practice. It's not about suppressing what you feel or pretending to be okay when you're not. It's about seeing your emotions clearly and choosing how to respond, not just react. In this video, we're diving into 7 powerful Stoic lessons, principles that have stood the test of centuries. These aren't just abstract ideas from dusty old books. They're practical tools you can use in real life, in traffic, at work, during that awkward family dinner, when you're overwhelmed or overthinking again. Whether you're already into Stoicism or just starting to explore it, these ideas are for anyone who wants to build emotional strength, stay calm under pressure, and stop being thrown around by every little thing life throws your way. Also, just a quick note. If this kind of content helps you feel more grounded, go ahead and hit the like button. It lets YouTube know this is worth sharing. And if you haven't already, consider subscribing and turning on the bell. That way you'll never miss new insights, the kind that help you build a mind that stays steady, even when the world doesn't. Now let's get into it. Have you ever tried to change someone else's behavior, and it completely backfired? Maybe it was a family member who never respects your boundaries, a colleague who constantly undermines your efforts, or a friend who always seems to cancel last minute. You give your energy, your time, and your patience, only to realize you can't control them. We've all been there. And here's where the first Stoic lesson comes in. You can't control the actions of others or the events around you. But you can absolutely control how you interpret and respond to them. Think about it. Life is full of unpredictable moments. You don't know when your car will break down, when a deadline will shift, or when that random stranger will snap at you for no reason. You can't stop those things from happening. But what you can control, what you always have control over, is how you choose to respond to them. Let's take a real-life example. You're driving home after a long day. You've got your mind focused on your next task, maybe planning dinner or catching up with a friend. Then, out of nowhere, someone cuts you off in traffic. You slam the brakes, your heart races, and for a brief second, it feels like the world has just thrown a massive wrench into your calm. Your mind starts spinning. You get upset, maybe even curse under your breath. But now, stop and think for a moment. What actually just happened? Did the driver's actions harm you? Or did you decide to interpret those actions in a way that upset you? Did you actually need to feel disrespected? Or did you just choose to feel that way in response to something outside your control? Here's where the Stoic approach turns things on its head. Instead of being swept away by your initial emotional reaction, you have the power to step back and look at the situation objectively. Epictetus, the Stoic philosopher who once lived as a slave and rose to be a respected teacher, captured this perfectly when he said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. It's not that the event didn't happen. It did. But the emotions that follow? That's your choice." This idea is more than just calming yourself down in the heat of the moment. It's about realizing that you're the one in charge of your inner state. Your reactions don't have to be knee-jerk emotional responses. Instead, you can create a gap, a moment of awareness, where you decide how you want to respond. Let's say you're frustrated because you didn't get the promotion you were hoping for. That's painful. You feel overlooked, even rejected. But instead of letting that frustration consume you, you pause and ask yourself, is this something I can change? If the answer is yes, Great. Take action. Maybe ask for feedback and see how you can improve. If the answer is no, that's your opportunity to practice acceptance. It doesn't mean you're okay with what happened. It just means you accept that it's outside your control, and you stop giving your emotional energy to something you can't change. This concept might seem simple, but it's a game changer. Once you start realizing that your emotional state doesn't need to depend on external circumstances, you start gaining back control over your life. Instead of waiting for everything around you to align perfectly, you learn to stay steady, no matter what happens. It's also not about suppressing your feelings. The Stoics weren't robots. They weren't telling you to bottle up your emotions. They believed in facing your emotions head-on, but also in choosing how to respond to them. If you're angry, you feel it. If you're upset, you sit with it. But then you ask yourself, is this reaction serving me? What if, instead of letting that driver ruin your day, you see the situation for what it is? Just another moment in the flow of life. It doesn't define your entire day. It doesn't get to steal your peace. That's where your power lies. And here's the kicker. Once you internalize this, your stress levels go down, your sense of peace goes up, and suddenly, you're not at the mercy of every emotional storm that comes your way. You stop feeling like you're constantly reacting and start feeling like you're in control, not over the world, but over yourself. And that's a huge distinction. Lesson 2. Emotion is a signal, not a command. Our life kind of runs on emotion, doesn't it? We're constantly told to follow your heart, trust your gut, go with your feelings. It sounds empowering, and sometimes it is, but Stoicism flips the script. Instead of asking, "What do I feel?" the Stoics ask, "Where is that feeling actually taking me?" Because emotions aren't the enemy, they're just not always the best driver of your life. Think about anger. You get cut off in traffic, and your chest tightens. Your mind jumps to revenge, but does honking or chasing them down actually solve anything? Or does it just feed the fire? Jealousy? Same thing. You see someone doing better than you, living a life you think you deserve, and that sharp ache builds in your stomach. But does that feeling move you towards something meaningful, or does it just keep you stuck, comparing? The Stoics didn't say, suppress emotion. They said, pause, observe, understand. Seneca believed emotions, when left unexamined, turn into tyrants. They don't ask for your permission, they just take over. But once you study them, once you create that little bit of space between the feeling and your reaction, that's when something shifts. You start to notice patterns. You recognize that fear isn't always danger. Sometimes it's just discomfort. You realize that sadness isn't always something to fix. Sometimes it's something to feel and let pass. The point isn't to become cold. It's to become conscious. Next time something hits you, hard, try asking, why am I feeling this? Is this about the situation in front of me, or something deeper behind it? What would happen if I didn't react right now? That pause, that moment of reflection, is your power. Because between the emotion and the action, there's space. And in that space, that's where your clarity lives. That's where you choose what kind of person you want to be. Let the emotion come. Let it speak. Just don't let it decide. You're in charge, not your feelings. Lesson 3. Practice voluntary discomfort. This one might sound strange, even a bit counterintuitive. Why would anyone choose to make their life harder? Especially when the world constantly pushes us toward comfort. Softer chairs, faster Wi-Fi, instant gratification. But the Stoics had a very different take. They believed that comfort, while nice, actually dulls our courage. It makes us fragile. It conditions us to expect life to always be easy, which sets us up to crumble when things get tough. So, instead of avoiding hardship, the Stoics sought it out. Voluntarily. They put themselves through small challenges on purpose. Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor known for his wisdom, would sleep on the cold, hard floor just to remind himself what real discomfort felt like. Not to punish himself, but to prove that he could endure it. to show himself that the things he feared were actually survivable. Seneca, a wealthy statesman and philosopher, ate plain, simple meals and dressed in humble clothes. These weren't acts of deprivation, they were acts of preparation. A way to train his mind to be content and steady, no matter what happened around him. Because here's the truth. Most of our fears come from the belief that discomfort or hardship will break us, that if life gets hard, we won't survive. But when you've already faced small discomforts, when you've intentionally chosen to experience them, those fears start to lose their power. So here's a practical exercise you can try right now. Pick something you usually rely on for comfort, your favorite snack, your warm shower, your daily coffee, and give it up for a day. Take a cold shower instead of a hot one. Walk to the store instead of driving. Skip your usual binge watch or scroll session before bed. It sounds simple, but it's powerful. It's not about punishment or deprivation. It's about building resilience, teaching your mind that you don't need constant ease to be okay. When life inevitably throws a real challenge your way, and it will, this practice makes a difference, because you'll have already proved to yourself that discomfort isn't the end of the world, that pain doesn't have to mean defeat. In fact, when you train yourself like this, discomfort becomes a teacher. It shows you your strength. It teaches you what you're truly capable of. You realize you can handle more than you thought. And here's the kicker. This practice doesn't just prepare you for tough times, it makes the good times sweeter. When you're not constantly chasing comfort, you appreciate moments of ease and joy more deeply. So next time you feel like complaining about something minor, try stepping into discomfort instead. It might just be the best thing you can do for your courage, your peace of mind, and your future self. Lesson 4. Name the emotion. Disarm the emotion. Have you ever noticed that the moment you say aloud, "I'm feeling anxious," it feels like the weight just lifts a little? It's not magic, it's neuroscience. The act of naming an emotion has a remarkable effect on the brain. It doesn't eliminate the feeling, but it does take away some of its power. Think about it. When we're overwhelmed, our emotions can feel like a tidal wave crashing over us without warning. The panic starts to rise, the frustration builds, and we spiral. In those moments, it's easy to feel like the emotion is us, like we're completely defined by whatever we're feeling. But what if instead of becoming that feeling, we simply acknowledged it? When the Stoics experienced difficult emotions, they didn't bottle them up or push them aside. They didn't pretend they weren't human. Instead, they observed their feelings with a sense of curiosity, almost like they were studying a foreign object. Take Marcus Aurelius, for example. He would often write in his journal about his emotions, but he wasn't pouring out his heart with a flood of words. No, he was naming them. He'd write, "This is frustration. This is fear. This is resentment." In those simple words, he was distancing himself from the emotion. He was creating a small space between the feeling and himself. And that's the trick. The moment you say, "I feel angry," or "I feel sad," you step out of the storm of emotion. You're no longer lost in it. Instead, you're standing outside watching it pass by. It becomes less like something happening to you, and more like something you're simply experiencing. Now here's where it gets interesting. When you name the feeling, you give yourself permission to explore it. And once you understand it, it loses its ability to control you. The Stoics didn't judge their emotions. They didn't try to eliminate them or act like they didn't exist. Instead, they got curious. Why am I feeling this? Where is this coming from? For instance, when you feel your anxiety rising, instead of getting lost in the worry, take a breath and say, "This is anxiety. This is the body reacting to uncertainty." When you're feeling frustrated, pause and acknowledge it. This is frustration. It's not me, it's just what I'm feeling right now. The key here is this. You don't need to fight your emotions to make them go away. The Stoics knew that fighting something only gives it more power. Instead, the goal is to understand it, to create a moment of awareness before you react. Try it next time. When emotions hit you hard, name them. This is fear. This is irritation. This is disappointment. And in that moment, notice how the intensity softens. You're not suppressing or denying it. You're simply observing it, seeing it for what it truly is. In that space, you're no longer a prisoner to your emotions. You've created room to choose your response. You can move through the feeling with more clarity and less drama. You might not stop the wave of emotions from crashing over you, but now you're not drowning in it. You're letting it wash over you, knowing that it will eventually pass. Naming the emotion doesn't make it go away instantly, but it does change the way you engage with it. And that shift? It's a powerful one. Instead of being swept away, you become the one who decides how to move forward. Lesson 5. Rehearse adversity in your mind. The Stoics had a practice that might sound unsettling at first. Premeditatio Malorum. It translates to the premeditation of misfortune. And while that might sound like a pessimistic exercise, it's actually a powerful tool for living more fully. Here's the thing. We tend to take the things we love for granted. Whether it's our health, our job, the relationships we cherish, or just the simple comforts of life, we often don't realize how much we value them until they're threatened. That's where Premeditatio Malorum comes in. It's about mentally preparing for loss before it actually happens. Now, don't misunderstand this. It's not about wallowing in misery or trying to bring negative energy into your life. It's about imagining the worst-case scenarios, the things that matter most to you slipping through your fingers, so you can wake up and really see them. Let's take a moment and think about it. What if you knew, for sure, that tomorrow you'd lose something or someone you love? How would that change the way you treat it today? You might be more patient with your partner, more grateful for your health, or more present at work. Maybe you'd hug your kids a little tighter, or tell your friend how much they mean to you. This is the essence of the Stoic exercise. Understanding that life is fragile, that nothing lasts forever, and that makes what we have today even more precious. It's like sharpening a blade. The awareness of potential loss, that emotional edge, can actually sharpen our gratitude. Instead of waiting for something to be taken away before we realize its value, we choose to reflect on it now, to honor it before we're forced to. This mental rehearsal of adversity isn't about creating fear or anxiety. Quite the opposite, really. It's about training your mind to handle loss when it comes, not by being reactive or overwhelmed, but by staying steady, rooted, and prepared. By rehearsing adversity in your mind, you start to cultivate resilience. The next time you face a challenge or lose something you care about, you won't be caught off guard. You'll be grounded, knowing that you've already mentally equipped yourself for life's uncertainties. And even more importantly, by practicing this regularly, you begin to appreciate your life in ways you didn't before. The everyday moments you often overlook, the quiet mornings, the conversations with loved ones, the job you sometimes take for granted, become more meaningful. You realize how much you have, right now. It's a reminder to live fully in the present, without clinging too tightly to the future. And in doing so, you train your heart not to be reactive, but resilient. You develop a quiet strength that comes from the knowledge that, no matter what life throws your way, you'll handle it with grace and gratitude. So the next time you're tempted to complain about something small, take a moment. Mentally rehearse what it would be like if you lost it. You might find that the things you've been taking for granted suddenly seem a lot more important, and the things that once felt like burdens might start to feel like blessings. Lesson 6. Don't argue with reality. Let's be real. Some days, life just doesn't care about your plans. The deal falls through. The friend lets you down. You get sick. You get stuck. Someone you love changes, or doesn't change at all. And the first thing we do? We fight it. Not out loud always. Sometimes it's just that loop in your head. This shouldn't be happening. This isn't fair. I can't believe this is real. But that mental resistance? It eats up your energy, fast. What the Stoics figured out, and what most of us forget in the heat of the moment, is that peace isn't just about finding calm. It's about facing reality and choosing not to flinch, even when it stings. Even when it wasn't supposed to go like this. Epictetus put it like this: don't demand that things happen as you wish that they happen as they do, and your life will flow smoothly. Now, that quote can feel a bit harsh at first, almost like you're being told to just deal with it. But that's not what it's about. It's not giving up. It's waking up. There's a huge difference between resignation and acceptance. Resignation shrugs and says, whatever. Acceptance takes a deep breath and says, okay, this is what's real, now what? Because once you stop wasting energy trying to rewrite the present moment, you get all that energy back to actually do something with it. Arguing with reality doesn't change it. It just keeps you stuck in a version of the story that no longer exists. Acceptance isn't weakness, it's power. The kind that's quiet but solid. Like standing barefoot on the ground after a storm. When you accept what is, not because it's fair or easy, but because it is, you stop being a victim of the situation. You become an agent inside it. You stop asking why me and start asking what now. That's not passivity, that's presence. And that shift, that's the beginning of real strength. Lesson 7. Keep death in mind and life in focus. This one hits different. It sounds dark at first, maybe even a little morbid. But for the Stoics, memento mori wasn't meant to scare you. It wasn't some gloomy reminder that life is fragile. It was a wake-up call, a flashlight for the soul. When you realize you won't be here forever, something shifts. Small annoyances don't hit as hard. Petty arguments lose their bite. You stop obsessing over how others see you and start thinking more clearly about how you see yourself. It's not about giving up or checking out. It's the opposite. You start showing up, fully. Because if time is limited, then every moment becomes more valuable. Not in a pressure-filled, hustle-harder kind of way, but in a deeply grounded one. You choose your battles more carefully. You say what matters. You stop holding on to anger like it's some kind of prize. Most of the stuff we stress about, the drama, the distractions, the ego games, they shrink when death is in the room. And that's not depressing. It's clarifying. It strips away the noise. Marcus Aurelius, emperor of Rome, with the weight of a whole empire on his shoulders, still reminded himself daily, you could leave life right now, not to spiral, but to snap out of autopilot, to live with more intention, to speak with more honesty, to love with less hesitation. If you're really present with the fact that this ride doesn't last forever, you stop wasting time pretending you're fine when you're not. You make space for real joy, for connection, for growth. And maybe that's the paradox. Remembering death isn't about dying. It's about finally learning how to live. Look, none of these 7 lessons are about pretending you don't feel things. They're not about becoming cold or robotic or emotionally numb. What they are about is developing a kind of emotional clarity. Like, instead of being tossed around by every little wave, you learn how to stand still, even when the current's strong. You don't ignore the storm. You just stop letting it control you. That's what the Stoics were really after. Not perfection, not detachment for the sake of detachment, but peace that holds up even when life gets messy, especially when life gets messy. And I don't know about you, but that feels more important than ever. So let me ask you something. Out of all the lessons we've walked through today, which one hit home for you? Was it about letting go of what you can't control, learning to respond instead of react? Or maybe just remembering that we're not here forever? Drop it in the comments and be honest about it. You never know who's reading. Your words might be exactly what someone else needs to hear. And if any part of this video made you stop and think, even for a second, hit that like button. It helps the algorithm, sure, but more importantly, it lets me know this kind of content matters to you. If you're new here, subscribe. And tap that bell so you don't miss what's next. This channel isn't just about Stoicism. It's about building a life with depth, calm, and presence. One video at a time. Thanks for being here. Until next time, stay thoughtful, stay grounded, and keep showing up. For your peace, your growth, and the version of you that's still unfolding.